So welcome back. Trust you have had a great lunch. It's always very good in this hotel I've experienced. I love it. What I'd like to share with you is my experiences in integrated planning and in leadership. I'm very passionate about integrated business planning. I'm doing this now for more than 15 years in a couple of companies, as you can see here on the screen. That is FMCG, that is fashion, and that is chemicals. And it's always a big thing, actually, to get it designed, started, and running. And what I experienced also in those 15 years is that some companies come to the full potential of integrated planning, and some companies just stop somewhere in the middle. And that is not because they are not willing, but they and not well educated, but that is the capability actually to lead. It's about great leadership, what makes it to a full potential. So I try to make it as good as examples of those companies. A little bit of background. So what is integrated planning, for those who are not completely into the topic. The reason, actually, why I want to share it with you. No leadership, no glory. So no guts, no glory, no leadership, no glory. The future in today, avoidable costs. So when you run integrated planning very well, you can avoid huge costs. When you don't do it well, good people will leave. You need a realistic strategy and goals, the right-sized organization, and then at the end, 5 minutes for questions. That's more or less the structure of the presentation. What I did was actually trying to make a distinction between sales and operations planning and integrated business planning. I used that picture from Gartner, what you see here. I said actually sales and operations planning, that is more or less the stage 2 and the stage 3 in the picture from Gartner. So anticipation and integration. It's very much on the cost focus, and it is actually from inside out, internally the company. It's very much focused on volumes, not so much on financials, or sometimes totally not on financials. It's balancing demand and supply. And actually when you move further, integrated business planning, then actually you are more on the profit side. So what brings it in terms of money for the bottom line and the top line for the company. So then you are at stage 4 and stage 5. You are more outside in. You are looking to your competitors. You are looking to your consumers. It's also much more sales and marketing driven. We also can see as an S&OP leader in a company working in stage 2 and 3 usually reports into a supply chain director with a supply chain dimension. But when you are running integrated business planning, stage 4 and stage 5, I always report to the CEO or to one of the vice presidents or the CFO. But usually, actually, the CEO was my boss in those cases. Because it's more about only supply chain. It's also about sales, about marketing, about finance. And especially, there's also this topic about strategy and about organization. Because when you cannot meet actually your strategy, you have to do something in that. And that requires really executive leadership. That's not something you can do on senior level. This picture, for some of you, it's new. For some of you, you can see it. It's actually, for me, the mother of all slides in terms of integrated planning from Oliver White Company. What you can see here is this is the product dimension. Everything around product innovations was also killing old products. So it is dominated by marketing, but also sales is taking an important role there, because when you cannot sell it and you cannot build your distribution, it makes no sense to do product innovations. And supply chain is also part of it, because when you, in the beginning of your innovation process, wants to make something, but supply says after a while that's completely impossible, only we have a huge investment, we can do that in the factory, then it's also not very worthwhile to do that. So product dominated by marketing, product innovation, but also supply and sales and finance are taking part in that. Now, the demand review is dominated by sales, but also marketing is part in that, because they have to see how competition is doing and what kinds of additional commercials they can do on television or billboards or that kind of stuff. And supply chain, and there's no supply chain in demand, that is forbidden. We close our eyes for supply chain in demand because it is how would you say that? Not constrained, unconstrained demand. Let's say the supply is not allowed to say, that is a nice idea, but we cannot make it because whatever. No, because integrated planning, that is something for months 4 to 24, for the mid and long term, you get time in supply to arrange your assets actually to do that. So supply is not taking part in demand. This is then the whole column for supply and suppliers, a very important one. And everything below, above this red line, that is integrated planning. So you can see that is a mid and long-term view, months 4 to 24, and that's rolling. And everything, and also consolidated. You are not on SKU level, you are subcategories or categories. And everything below the red line, actually, that is detailed by week and by SKU level. It's very detailed. But this is more the S&OP part below the red line, and above the red line is more the integrated planning part. So there are two different ball games. What you can see also in the Gartner picture, you have to start also with sales and operations planning before you can run your integrated planning, because otherwise your basics are a mess. Now, this is the picture from Oliver White, so it's a journey. So what I tried actually is to map that picture from Gartner with the picture from Oliver White, and more or less it says the Gartner 1 is here, Oliver White this level. So these were the two S&OP levels from Gartner. Then you are about this part. You can still do that with senior management. Well, when you really want to go to integrated planning, so advanced integrated business planning, and so T4 and T5, so Gartner 4 and 5 collaborate and orchestrate, you are more on executive level. And why executive level? Because there you can see strategically driven, changing the organization. I've done it in my last company, Bavaria. We really changed strategy, we really modified the organization. And that is something you cannot do just on senior management level, because that is so intense when you change those things. That's really something for the board what you have to do. And therefore you see the difference between integrated planning and sales and operations planning. It's not a ball game. But the reason actually why I do this, when you have executive leadership in your company and they are not in the beginning, of course, able to run, to understand a good integrated planning process, you have to educate them. I've never seen a company in those 15 years, all the companies you've seen, where in the beginning they had an idea what is integrated planning. They had a slight idea. When we started in Heinz with integrated planning was Bill Johnson, who is in Pittsburgh, was the CEO, as he said, my shares are always, I would say that, by the stock analysts, lower valued than the one from Unilever or Danone or something like that. And that's because our outcome in the business was always too volatile versus the numbers we actually promised to the market. So we said, I want integrated planning in Heinz to make sure that what we promise to the market in terms of financials, we're also going to deliver. So we said in terms of cash flow and NSV, net sales value, and EBITDA, a small percentage plus or minus on a rolling 3 months basis, what we have to deliver. Now, that was the reason actually in Heinz. In CNA, the fashion company, maybe you don't know it in the UK, a little bit like H&M or Zara. It's very big in continental Europe and in Brazil. In continental Europe, 1,500 stores. I did it there. And there they said, we want integrated planning. So Phil Brenninkmeijer, who's the owner, family owner from CNA. We want integrated planning because in fashion, we are so much behind versus the FMCG industry. So I want someone from the FMCG industry, so that was me, actually to transform all those methodologies and techniques and vocabulary from FMCG, so from Heinz to CNA fashion. So integrated planning or S&OP, those words do not exist usually in fashion. It's called merchandise planning and allocation, that kind of stuff. So it was a translation actually of the vocabulary, but also the dynamics are very different. But when it is, for instance, very difficult in a Heinz company in the beginning, or in a Castrol, I also did Castrol, or at the moment Bavaria, to move people beyond the current fiscal year, and to think also about next fiscal year and even beyond it. In a fashion, there's no problem, because you are already thinking about season number 3 years from now, because you have to start actually with the trends. I will show you a few pictures of that. You're ready to understand what are the types of music, how are we going to spend our spare time, etc., etc. And based on that, the whole collection is actually built. So in fashion, there's already a very long-term view. but it's not in FMCG in principle. So you have people to educate and coach them in the executive team, to make them understand of that UFO from the previous picture. And then the second thing is actually, then you will see, I saw it also in a few companies, when they lack the capability actually to lead, so they understand what they have to do, they can take the decision, I've seen it, but they are not able to execute the decision and to communicate that to the employees, you can better stop with running IBP on a full scale. Doesn't make sense. Because it's a high price actually you are paying for integrated planning. It's a high price. Why? Because first of all, you must have a very realistic goal and a strategy actually leading to that goal. When the goal is too naive, you try with integrated planning to deliver something, but continuously you see people frustrated that they cannot realize that goal from, for instance, 1 billion turnover in 2020. So a certain moment in integrated planning, in that monthly cycle, you have to say, this is not going to work, guys, unless we do another acquisition. So we have to or reduce the goal from, let's say, 1 billion to 750 million, what we did in the previous company, or we do another acquisition. But that is actually a difference also in terms of strategy. But when you go down to 750 million, you also need a smaller organization. You have to downsize your organization. Now you can see those decisions you have to take in integrated planning, and that's completely different from sales and operations planning. And that really requires executive leadership, taking decisions and execute them. Otherwise, it makes no sense. As an IBP leader, so what I did, you can help. But I said I was reporting into the CEO, because what you are doing is more than just supply chain. You create transparency and you open the eyes, actually, of the board. That helps very much. You transfer knowledge and you do coaching. You must really master the business issues. You cannot only be a process guy. You have also to understand the big business issues of the company and to help them actually to solve that. Understanding the strategy, so what we did in the previous company, then we modified the strategy and we downsized the organization. And temporarily you can bridge some leadership gaps. Only I did last summer for a couple of months the marketing for France as part of my job, but you can only do that for a few weeks, a few months, and then the chief marketing officer has to take over again. Otherwise it doesn't work. Then you take over his job. That's not the objective, actually. And when you see that it is not working on a regular and frequent basis, then better to stop and say, I'm not going to realize level 4 or 5 in that Gartner model, but we stick to level 3 S&OP or maybe S&OP plus, and that's it. And that's it. Because then you want to go further, the price you have to pay as organization is far too high. And the price is not the consultants or my salary, the price is really the people who are frustrated working in that company and trying to achieve goals who are not realistic. And then they leave, and that's a high price. In terms of coaching, there are actually 4 important questions, what I always do with executives in the board, but also in senior management, and really trying to make them understand those 4 questions. Did we do what we said we have to do? That's the first question. Second one, what is the plan? Number 3, is it enough? So you have a bottom-up view from product, demand, and supply, and the financials. You have your top-down strategy, and there's a gap. And there's always a gap, because when there's no gap, you have no ambition. Or the bottom-up numbers are so faked, so full with air, that is also not working. That was also in one of the previous companies. You really had to drive that out. That's called bias. And so you must have an honest view, bottom-up, a realistic strategy. I'm not saying we do the marathon in 1 hour, because that's not realistic. But 2 hours and, what is it, 7 minutes. That's the world record with 2 hours and 3 minutes, something like that. And so do a little bit more than you can, but not overstress. Yeah? So that is it enough? And if it's not enough, what do we about to close that gap? Now, what we did in the previous company, we reduced actually the goals, and we modified the strategy also for Asia, and we downsized the organization. Oh, that helped. And then we get a little bit more peace in the organization instead of everyone is frustrated. So that are executive decisions, as IBP and leadership, that are really leadership decisions you have to take, and not me. You can bring them to the table. They have to say, yes, we're going to do that, and they execute it and communicate it. Otherwise, stop. Now, no leadership, no glory. When you have great leadership, you are equipped to realize that strategy. That's per definition, because those strategies are not just naive. I'm working now with another company, and I know a few of those guys, and they are real strategists, and they are very realistic. So they are really going to, so I went through the whole strategy and the plans, and they're going to make it. They have a good understanding of what is possible. So they do the marathon in, let's say, 2 hours and 2.5 minutes, something like that. There's a little bit what they can do. And then the most important thing is that in that integrated business planning, so it's not about the next couple of weeks or the next 3 months, it's about months 4 to 24. You bring in the future today. I will show you some examples from the fashion, because that's nice actually to illustrate. You have to take decisions today for season, spring, summer 2021. And we must do a very good decision about that. Otherwise, you have the wrong collection, and if you have the wrong collection, you are out of business and a lot of money. Another bad thing is also when people have taken in the boards a decision, and they change it the day later, or they change it the week later. And that is not an exception. I've seen companies where I really had to code and say, no, we have now decided we're going to do this. Nothing has been changed in the circumstances or in the data, so we keep to that decision. No change, actually. And then you see that executives sometimes want to change it because whatever subjective reason, and then you are moving away, also not helping. And then what you see is people feel not supported, so their direct reports and the people below that level become overstressed, and the good ones leave the company. And that's a very high price, especially for in demand management. It's very difficult to find good demand people. When you have them, treat them well and give them a career and be honest. But when you do not do that, then they're gone. You can start again. It takes 3 years to bring someone from nothing to a junior demand planner. And then they are up and running to do a proper job. And when they are gone after 3 years, you can start again. And the future today is more or less about the product management. So you can maybe remember that UFO from one of the earlier slides. So everything in product management is about the view you have in the funnel for the category for the next 2 or 3 years. And there's a whole stage and gate process. But continuously you have to take decisions to make sure that something is going to land 2 or 3 years from now, based on the best knowledge you have from today. And what you very often see is that 100 ideas come in, and 100 ideas, after a while, are landed into the retail in the shelves. And from those 100 ideas, 95 are not working, so the retailer becomes angry and takes them out. Your profile is weakening, and you are losing a lot of money. So in that whole stage and gate process, in the product column, make sure that when you start with 100 ideas, that you very strongly reduce them to maximum 10 product launches at the end. We're going from 100 to 10. So that's the best practice. Maximum 10% of the innovations must land actually into the retail in an FMCG company or in fashion. And number one, what splits the boys from the men? It's also a statement I've used very often in Heinz. Actually, one of my bosses has used that. Demand planning is not about just putting numbers into a spreadsheet or into a system. They are just numbers. But what is the plan behind the number? Why do you think that the sales are going up from 10 to 14 next season? When there is no answer from a sales manager or marketing manager, I do not believe that we are going up from 10 to 14. There's only wishful thinking that it goes from 10 to 14. So there's actually, so when you have a demand plan, what has the numbers and the plan behind the numbers. So what drives the numbers? What are the assumptions in terms of sales and marketing and competition and consumers? How do they behave? Then you have really a good knowledge on what the market is going to do and what the number makes a difference versus today. And that splits the boys from the men. And it's very difficult, actually, to get that landed also in an organization. You can really see, I've done it in all those companies, and quite easily could make two groups, the boys and the men. And it takes a hell of a time to make from a boy a man. Some boys stay boys forever. And now the rest is okay. Now we go to the fashion. Actually, that example, I put a few slides in to show how the fashion is actually far more ahead versus the FMCG industry in terms of looking ahead and trying to identify what's going to happen 3 or 4 years from now. So when I started in CNA, I was quite surprised and was pleased to see, okay, we have all those trend watches and we buy them, and you get insights from the Versace's of this world. But the question is not what kind of clothes or fashion are we going to put. No, the question is what kind of music are we going to listen? Are we going to the Sahara on holiday, or going to Lapland, to Norway, or are we in the cities, or are we going to Tuscany? Are we having dinners with a lot of people, or are we just with the 2 or 3 of us in cozy restaurants or at home? What kind of books are we going to read? Now, all those trends actually were collected, and based on that, a vision of the fashion for the future, and then we're talking about 3, 4 years from now, was then actually said. That was written in stories. There's a book, I'm not going to read also, but this is actually the merchandise planning manual. It was 2016, so that was made in 2012, 2013, something like that, a couple of years before. So they really write a story about the moods actually of the consumer, how they feel, how they think 2016 in winter will be. It's about sharing and nature, focus on the planet, and those kind of things. That's a start actually for building a collection in fashion. Then actually you go from macro to micro. You get the mega trends, sharing, become part of your family. You get sub-trends, bringing the family back together when they're all over the places in the world. Impact to our customer, or the visual representation and lifestyle content on that one. So then you are going to actually deep dive actually what that story means in terms of that. And then you get the pictures, pictures of that. And then actually it starts with elements like this. Here you see the new mix. The inspiration was by technique. What kind of technique do we see for the future? Do we like at the moment? Paper cuts, advertising, beauty, architecture, pop art, fashion, music. So all those influences are actually building that fashion trend for over a couple of years. So they're far ahead of the FMCG industry. And then you get, let's say, this for 3 years ahead, and then you go half year later or a year later, 2 years ahead. So you go more detail, what kind of texture, what kind of fabric, what kind of colors. So you're becoming more detailed until the time of the collection launch starts. And then you get very detailed schedules like this in fashion, really about, or for the full year, what are the seasons, how are the windows looking, what kind of main colors and sub-colors, what are the titles, mothers make a difference, light, bright, white, and so on. The price tags. So fashion is actually quite sophisticated in that type of work. So when I started in CNA with the Brenningmeyers, and he said to me, FMCG, Heinz and so, and Castrol and whatever, they are far ahead to us. I said, no. Yeah, in some areas they are, but not in things like this. only the level of automation is in FMCG far higher, and in fashion, and especially in CNA, had to be uplifted. But I really know what they're talking about. And now it's come to that leadership. So when you make errors, mistakes in the last couple of slides and things like this, those decisions were made by the CMO, the Chief Merchandise Officer. But when she made an error, a mistake is a better word, not error, and you have a complete wrong collection. She also reviewed all the fashion, all the main items actually, what's going really into the shops that we're going to design and what we get into the outlets. So it's very deep. But when you make a wrong decision in the beginning, you have a terrible season. And also that happens sometimes. And let's talk beer. So I'm working now for Bavaria, the breweries. This is a picture actually of that process from what I said, from the 100 ideas here in the beginning. At the end, you want only 10 launches into the shelves of the retail. And you must be very critical in each of those gates to move on. Because when you are not critical, then it is not a funnel, but a tunnel, 100 in, 100 out. That costs a lot of money, because what I said, the retailer will be angry because you are putting products in they are not selling. Secondly, you have burned a lot of money in that whole process. So there's also, and that are really executive decisions. It's not so much about supply chain or sales and operations management, because this one is great what you see here. So last 3 months, last quarter, we were really thinking about how are we drinking beer in 5 years from now? Because we wanted to change that crate. It doesn't look good. It's an old crate. So shall we design a new crate and a new bottle? But designing a new crate, that costs 15 million euro. 1.5. For that company, it's a lot of money. Do we still buy in 3 years from now crates of beer? Maybe we only buy 6 packs or separate bottles, a little bit craft. This Pilsner is really going down. Craft beers and specialties are really going up. So is it worthwhile, the investment? So there's, again, an executive decision you have to make here in the beginning of that process. The Chief Marketing Officer from Bavaria. Are we going to spend so much money into a new crate? No, actually we said we're not going to do that. There's too much money. But when you do it, then you run into a complete drama like that. So an example of that. Ketchup, the Heinz ketchup, same way. It was the big innovation actually, 10 years ago. It was the top-down bottle. And I saw it for the first time in 2004, 2005. I thought, is that now so impressive? But it was, because Heinz was the first company who actually engineered this bottle. And the advantage is that the water is at the top of the bottle instead of below. In the old bottles, and you then open the bottle and put some ketchup on your hamburger, you get all that water, and so that was not good. So they spent really a lot of money in engineering how we can do that. And you see the solution is very simple. Just make it top down. The most of the money was actually spent in this, I don't know the English word, in the tap, so that it looks nice and is clean. And then you saw the other competitors like Unilever with Calvé and so, they were copying actually that process. But Heinz was the first mover in that. Now, so that was new to the world. There's also what we do in integrated planning. We said, okay, we want in our strategy for marketing of product innovation, let's say once in the 3 years, new to the world. You cannot do every half year new to the world or every year new to the world. That's impossible. You can do new to Bavaria, or you can do new to Heinz, or you can do new to Heineken or whatever. But new to the world is something what you only do for those big companies once in the 2-3 years. Now, this was a good example actually of that. And it really boosted the sales. You really could see that. And then this picture, this is actually the funnel you saw 2 slides ago. So from 100 ideas here to 10 ideas here with that crate of Bavaria pills. Now this picture is the Heinz one, but then not horizontal but vertical. And when I see pictures like this in a company, immediately, visually, you can see if this is going to bring something to the strategy or not. So let's say when it's quite empty at the top, that means that, the time goes from there to there. So when it is quite empty in ideation and quite empty in concept qualification, that means that over a year or 1.5 years, we have nothing to launch to the retail, empty. Yeah, then it must be, well, in Bavaria it was very full in the beginning here, it was overloaded. We were only working like hell to deliver the next 3 months. In the beginning it was empty, now it's the other way around. Now we have enough ideas and enough concepts in the funnel also to make sure that we deliver in 2 years from now. So pictures like this are actually good to see visually, immediately, does it make sense what we are doing here in terms of product innovation or not? Now when it's very empty, and here you only see 1, 2, 3, 5, and here a couple of, that's good. So when it is fully loaded, what was in the beginning in Bavaria, then you know that is not going to work. We are going to put everything what we have thought of into the shelves of the retail, and most of them will fail. So those pictures are important in that integrated planning process. So once a month, you present this picture to the board, and with the explanation, they immediately can see, oh yeah, we are good on track, or we're not good on track. You also make it financial, but I will not bore you with that. So, this is actually the demand plan. It splits the boys from the men, this picture. Here's a 5-piece. Here's it 24 months rolling. What you do is the first of the next year, from now, the next 12, 13 periods, you do by period. And of course, you're not going to do period by period for year number 2. You do by quarter. One thing. And secondly, are the 5 P's, product, price, place, promotion, and profit. And actually, when someone says, I think I'm going to do so much volume more there and there, okay, why? Oh, because we have increased our distribution at Tesco, okay. Or we do a promotion in 8.6, there's a brand from Bavaria in France, doing so that delivers that amount, okay. In product, the previous slides, we're going to launch a Mango Passion alcohol-free drink for South Africa and for the Middle East markets. Okay, so you put plans actually behind the numbers. That's important. When you only have a demand forecast with numbers, you fail. As a leader in the board or in the executive leadership team, you must insist that your sales managers, and that's a tough exercise, that they really put plans behind the numbers to split the boys from the men. Now, it didn't happen in one of the areas, in one of the continents in Bavaria. So, what did we do? We kindly asked the regional director of that continent to leave the company, and we replaced him with someone else. So you must execute that decision and communicate it, otherwise it doesn't work. It takes really guts to do that. It's difficult. For some people, it's very difficult. And what I've seen many examples where it didn't happen, then they said, okay, maybe it's better in half year from now, so let's see in summertime how it is working. It doesn't go over. When you cannot become a man from a boy, then it remains that. Avoidable costs. When you take no decisions, or when you change your decisions a day later or a week later, you also will run into situations that, here the first one, you will not reduce your inventories, or you run in situations where you have too much bias. That means you are over-promising and under-delivering, so it means your stocks are going up. Or the other way around, that's called sandbagging. You think, I'm going to promise my boss 80. I think I'm going to do 90 for sure. I don't say that. I say only 80, because then I get the extra bonus. So then I have actually out of stocks, because the factory, the supply chain only produces 80 and not 90. Now, that is something what always in the beginning want to drive out immediately. Drive forecast bias out. It's nothing to do with systems. It has nothing to do with processes. It's only to do with behavior. But first you must learn the board, so the executive leadership, what is forecast bias. Now that's very easy. Picture here. What is forecast bias? No, that is the zero line, selling more or selling less versus what you have promised. And actually, you must have on a monthly basis plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. That kind of sinusoid you must have. And it is continuously like this. You are over-promising, under-delivery, or the other way around. So pictures like this are very helpful. They understand it immediately. But then they have to take the decision to say to that regional director, for instance, I insist that your plans become more robust because or you are continuously sandbagging or you are continuously having dreams. And that is actually embarrassing and it is creating a lot of costs for our organization. So that's the bias thing. That is an easy thing you can immediately identify when you start new assignments in a new company. When it's about integrated planning, you can drive it out. But you must have the help of your leadership team, the executives, to instruct, actually, to correct their direct reports like regional directors, something like that. Yeah, that's actually this picture. And it sounds easy, but it takes really about half a year to a year before you have driven it out in the company. Because those numbers here are forecasted, or promised, it's better, promised by that regional director 3 months before that. And so it is not a number what he or she is going to sell next week or next month, no. It is now 1st of February, so I want February, March, April. So I want your forecast from May. And when May is finished, I'm going to look to the actuals and compare the actuals from May versus the number you promised me in the 1st of February. And that difference is this bar. And that's one. And secondly, you make a moving average total, because sometimes you are lucky, sometimes that can happen. So you make that's the dotted line, you make a moving average total. So, okay, at least 6 months, or 6, let's say, photographs in a row. So that takes now already 6 months plus 3 months. So 9 months at least, you need to drive actually bias out. But really, it saves a lot of money when you have that in control. And it has nothing to do with systems, only behavior. Splits the boys from the men. Good people leave. Now, it's not so, or they become overstressed, because what happens? The forecasts are sandbagged, or too low. The real sales is higher. Supply chain has to speed up, to accelerate. We have to do overtime. We have to cancel other orders. We have to make priorities. Leave private label out, do something, do the A brands first. But yeah, private label is also a customer, so we cannot do that continuously, and so on and so on. So people really become overstressed, actually, through all the daily changes because of that bias. That's one thing. And I've seen them gone. So then they say, okay, I'm done. I'm going to quit. I'm going to a company where I'm in a professional environment. What I said, it takes about 3 years before someone is a junior demand planner at par. Mid-level managers, I've seen it also. They say, yeah, when my boss, my board member, is continuously going from there to there, we're taking no decision at all. I cannot make a career here. I quit. I'm out. That happens. And number 4, oh yeah, that's also an important one. Beginning of the presentation said S&OP is not equal to integrated planning. It's different. So a little bit black and white. I said sales and operations planning is the Gartner's levels 2 and 3. There's more cost-focused, volume-focused, short-term, balancing demand and supply. It's more inside company. Integrated business planning is more the Gartner's 4 and 5. That's about orchestrating, about collaboration with your customers, or the customers from your customers, with your suppliers, It's about the profit equations, about strategy, about organization. Also other reporting lines, reporting to the CEO or reporting to the supply chain, the vice president supply chain. There's a difference. So, and very often you see those vacancies or articles. So we are recruiting a S&OP or an IBP manager, or IBP director, whatever. And you read, okay, it's not IBP, it's just standard S&OP, what you want. But when you go into such an assignment, or such a job, you have a different expectation level than actually you as a person, but also as a company. But the company thinks, oh, there's someone who's going to balance demand and supply, the volumes for the short term. And you think, oh, I'm going to run integrated planning on financials and strategy and so. So there's also a mismatch. It's also important. And put people first. And then happy customers come thereafter. Put people first. Your employees are the most important assets you have. Put people first. A realistic strategy and goal. Here's an example I already explained in the beginning. You have a bottom-up view from that product, demand, supply, and the financials. And that comes with a view of the next 2 years to a 750 million net sales value. We have actually a goal in the strategy from 1 billion. And we're not going to hit that. So we have to do or another acquisition, but we said no. We want to have the growth, 1/3 by acquisitions, 1/3 by new business development, and 1/3 through autonomous growth. And what we saw in the autonomous growth, that we were only growing 1 or 2% per year. Now, when you extrapolate that 1% a year, you will never come to closing the gap of 250 million. So, or we decide to do another acquisition, or we decide to bring down the 1 billion to 750 million, or we take another 10 years. There's also an option. But you have to decide it, and to, secondly, to change your organization towards that. Otherwise, there's also in that company, our central organization was far too big and far too costly, actually. So we had to reduce that. Now there's this one. The level 4 from Gartner, that put only the 2 lines out about strategy and organization. There's really integrated planning. This is more the S&OP claim, this integrated planning. And the picture here, I've done a couple of companies, as you have seen. Heinz company, for instance, they have a very limited global organization that is next to nothing. And everything happens in the countries. Because the marketing organization in Heinz, they had 3-4 people in Pittsburgh. The regional organizations were not existing. Everything is in the countries. Very lean and mean organization. Another company, that was Kestrel, I worked also, had a huge headquarter, Swindon, and a big regional offices in the 3 continents. And in the countries, actually, they just had to execute what central, the global organization had thought of, or had decided, and so on. It also works because different products, so it's not false, but for Heinz, it wouldn't work, for instance. Now, what I learned actually from those experiences, when I went to Bavaria, in the old days, Bavaria is a family-owned company in the south of the Netherlands. They acquired Palm beers also. And they are there for nearly 300 years. And they had an organization like this. So it was not highly sophisticated, but very entrepreneurial, very entrepreneurial. And it was growing. And then, for whatever reason, they actually changed their organization into that. It was a huge global headquarter, and the countries just had to follow what the headquarter had decided. Now, you saw the sales going like this. The costs of the organization went up. Profits went down. People were frustrated. All the things I just said, people were leaving, etc., etc. So what we did Q4 last year, we brought it back from the green to the red picture. So we aligned actually, so we changed strategy, aligned organizations, said goodbye to that central model, and brought it back actually to the more country model, where I said global is not unimportant, but it is more supporting. You can, in demand planning and demand forecasting is a nice example. You can do demand forecasting that is more mathematics with system. You can do that centrally. And then when the number work is done, number crunching is done, you give it to a demand planner in a country, and he or she is going to work with those data. What is competition doing? How are we going to bring our marketing in, etc., etc. But the basic work with the numbers, you can do, that is forecasting, mathematics, systems, you can do centrally. So supporting the country. So that's what we do now in Bavaria. Well, that was an important decision we did in the board of Bavaria last year. Actually bringing from green back to red. And it works. Now, that is more or less what I want to share with you about those experiences from the companies, and especially the difference between S&OP and sales and operations planning and integrated planning. And that's for integrated planning, you really need great leadership, otherwise it's better to stop, because the price you pay for integrated planning is so high, and people are leaving, costs are huge in terms of inventories, etc. And then you better stick to a lower ambition level than IBP.